So I've been super excited for this conversation. I'm joined by Martin Brooks, as I mentioned just before the break, an experienced communication coach and trainer. And he is the creator of the Body Language Decoder, which is 50 illustrated cards that reveal what others are really thinking. Amazing. Martin Brooks, welcome to the program.
Hey, fantastic to be here. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for this conversation. As you just heard earlier, I love helping people communicate, and I know that that's your background. So, Martin, I know you share my passion. How did you get into this line of work?
Yeah, so my background was in sales and sales leadership. And as part of that, I always had a training element to what I did. And I always had that curiosity that came from a psychology professor who said to me once, what's the difference that makes the difference? What are those peak performance things that top performers do to be better than just average, to be consistently better? So I started to become more and more fascinated with what those elements were. So whether it was body language or voice, or then how we structured language. And I've got a really good eye for body language. I picked it up and I find it absolutely fascinating and easy to study. And then to be able to implement what I was learning whilst I was standing up in front of a classroom full of people or giving a keynote speech, then I could actually sense check what works, what doesn't work. So I had live audiences who were my guinea pigs to try everything out, to be really defined and help keynote speakers, help presenters, help leaders use their body language as effectively as possible.
Well, definitely you are the body language expert, and you're always welcome here on Get Down to Business. But the title of your card deck, which we'll certainly share how people can learn more about, it's called the Body Language Decoder. So most important question that I know all of our listeners are probably asking in their cars or wherever they might be tuning in is, what parts of people's bodies are you decoding?
Yeah, it's the whole thing, really, because we're looking at people, even though we may be looking at that area between from their eyebrows to the kind of mid-chest when we're interacting with them face to face. And even interestingly enough, where we're doing remote communication by Zoom or some other networks, we tend to look at that particular area quite focused, but we're aware of all of body language at an unconscious level. And that always has that message. Those funny feelings that we get. Do we trust somebody? Do we like somebody? Are they confident? Are they nervous? But we do tend to zone in on the face and the hands and those gestures because they're most accessible. And those are the ones that are most important to get right.
Absolutely. And you heard my sort of amateur advice on body language for public speaking, but you've really tapped into something really, really interesting. You mentioned the Z word, that Zoom word, which is very, very much a part of our life. And this is something that, frankly, every single person tuning in is dealing with. Frankly, you're listening to me communicate right now, and you're not even seeing me face to face. So this has become even more important and even more relevant. So what is that one bit of advice, that homework assignment, if you will, that you have for our listeners in their Zoom meetings in the week ahead?
Yeah. The big thing about Zoom meetings, whether it's camera on or camera off, you really have to put that physical energy in. It's so much easier for people now to get disengaged. So your enemy is their inbox, and that inbox sits on their phone, and they can check that and then get pulled away into that. What's absolutely fascinating to me is if you watch any of the animated movies and any of the actors that are doing the voiceovers, you will always see them gesticulate wildly and jump up and down and make all of the hand movements. Look at Robin Williams when he was voicing Aladdin, even Keanu Reeves when he was doing the voiceover for Toy Story. All those actors are doing all of those dramatic movements to get their vocal qualities across. Now, if camera's off, as we are now, I'm moving my hands around. I'm making sure I'm sitting up straight. I'm gesticulating with my hands to add extra punch and extra pronunciation to my words. And if we were camera on, then of course that visual engagement with the people on the other side is really important. Our eyes are drawn to movement, and human beings, our primary sense is our sight. So it's really important that we're visually engaging. We're illustrating our points with our hands, or we're making more general confidence gestures to assure people that we do know what we're talking about.
Of course, I'm chatting with Martin Brooks, an experienced communication coach and trainer. He has a consultancy practice and his body language analysis has been aired on the BBC, LBC Radio, and the Discovery Channel. We're going to talk in a couple of minutes about the Body Language Decoder, a card set that reveals what others are really thinking. But Martin, my big takeaway over here is certainly body language is important, even when you are not face to face. So, sort of a fun question. I'm curious. I know you watch television, and you see politicians, you see people in public life that communicate. I want to throw two names out there. Hearing your accent, I'm going to ask you about Boris Johnson, who's been in the news quite a bit, and I'm going to ask you about Donald Trump, who's been in the news on our side of the pond. What do you see? What patterns do you pick up in terms of their body language?
Well, it's fascinating at the moment. Boris Johnson is very much in the news currently about what's commonly being referred to as Partygate. And interestingly enough, I was on radio being interviewed the other week about some of his potential deception tells, where he was denying being at the party, but when he was asked about it, he nodded his head yes. This is defined in Body Language Decoder as a truth slip, when our body language tells the truth, when we may not be saying exactly the same thing with our words. And
that's on the Boris Johnson side. Tell us real quick about Donald Trump.
Yeah, and Donald Trump, you see a lot of him do a lot of what we call the power play gestures, trying to assert himself, really trying to tell everybody that he's the boss, he's in charge. Quite aggressive the way he moves and points and gesticulates. And that's something that's very much come across in his communication style.
Fascinating stuff. Again, I'm chatting with the body language decoder himself, Martin Brooks. I've got to squeeze in a very quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about the body language decoder and learn how to get in touch with you. Martin Brooks, we'll be right back and get down to business. You're listening to Get Down to Business, the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. I've been learning from Martin Brooks, the creator of the Body Language Decoder, which includes 50 illustrated cards that reveals what others are really thinking. We've already chatted in our conversation about how body language is still important even when you're not face to face. We've talked about his background and some of the tips, advice that he has. And we even already squeezed in about Boris Johnson and Donald Trump and how they use their body language, sometimes for truth telling, maybe sometimes not. But Martin, what you do is fascinating. And I know you're bringing this down to the lowest level where everybody can actually decode body language. So tell us about the new product, Body Language Decoder.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The thing that's really fascinating to me about it is making sure with a training and development background that it's not just something observational, but it's something that people can put into practice straight away. And that's what I really liked about Body Language Decoder when I was approached by the publishers with an illustration on one side, which shows you exactly what to do, and then a written explanation on the other side of the card. It would be easy not only for people to observe and decode other people's body language more successfully, but also be able to put it into practice to come across more confidently, more credibly, and getting across your level of competence as well.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So as well as your card deck, you also have video-based series, which probably makes it a little bit easier to talk about body language. And I know it's called Body Language Mastery. What's in that that's not in the Body Language Decoder?
Well, first of all, there's 101 separate video tips in Body Language Mastery. So there's a lot more content. Those video clips are just short, snappy videos. They average about 87 seconds. And I break body language down into how you can use your hands. There's 46 separate gestures you can use with your hands, 10 for your face, 13 for your posture, 4 for your head, and also 28 behaviors from body language that can reduce your impact, reduce your standing in other people's eyes. So things not only to do, but also be aware of what not to do. So it's 101 videos in Body Language Mastery. It's available on teachable.com.
Teachable.com, absolutely. And I know your website is successthroughimpact.com as well. And all your products are very accessible. And Martin, I'll say this, that if you can tell me what our listeners are doing with their body language right now, wherever they might be tuning in, then you'll win the grand prize. But we won't test you on that right now. Martin, I love to leave our listeners with a tip. A little bit of advice. We've already shared quite a bit of advice, but what are the top 3 body language patterns that people could use or look out for in their everyday lives in the week ahead?
Well, the most important thing is become much more self-aware of your own body language. None of us like seeing ourselves on video. Everybody goes, kind of like recoils when we see ourselves in video. We must become more aware of how we're presenting ourselves to the world. And then we can go, if we don't like what we can see, then you can use the body language decoder or body language mastery to go, well, what do I want to change? What do I want to be more, to be assert myself more confidently, look more credible? So the first tip is become more aware of how you are putting yourself across. You mentioned earlier about looking at TED Talks and people that you admire. All of the techniques that I've got, I've stolen from other people. I've watched other people present and train and go, yeah, that's great. I love the way they're using their hand. That looks good. And so also pay attention to other people that you particularly like, which is always interesting, because then there's traits there that you can copy and you can manage. So self-awareness, look out what other people do that you can do as well, and also access some easily accessible products like Body Language Decoder or Body Language Mastery. Those are my 3 top tips.
I love it. I love it. You and I think alike. And I will just conclude by saying this, that I have actually watched myself with the volume off, and I've watched myself in public speaking. First time I did it, it was a traumatic experience, but practice does make perfect. And that's what this is all about. Martin Brooks, really enjoyed our conversation. One more time, where can people get in touch with you and purchase the Body Language Decoder?
The best place to get in contact with me is on the website, successthroughimpact.com. I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn. And the Body Language Decoder you can purchase on Amazon. Just search
Fantastic.
Body Language Decoder.
Well, that's a wrap for us here on Get Down to Business, the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship to success. Let's get down to business. We'll talk to you next Sunday at 6 p.m. right here on AM 560 The Answer.